our world right now is really unpredictable. We don't know if we're physically safe. We don't know if we're geographically safe, if we're environmentally safe. We are all hands on deck. Everyone feels so scared, but I feel excited because we're all now finally paying attention. I hear ya. Life is beating you up. You chose that. We've been trained to be addicted to all this drama and distraction. You really need to be discerning about what you're feeding your consciousness. There are forces of consciousness that are in service to our evolution. If you set your intentions and you're aligned with your heart, these forces will come in naturally to lift you up. You're aligned with that divine, authentic self in your body, you're going to have quite a miraculous experience in life. I'll tell you how to make it easy. I'll tell you how to make it super easy and works every time. I like to start by saying the meaning of the word intuition is inner teacher. So your inner teacher is communicating on several channels simultaneously. We have 5 outer senses, and we have inner senses that are coming online. Intuition isn't just one channel. There is the heart channel. There is the gut channel. The heart channel I call your green light channel. And this is that channel that you correlate to knowing. This is the channel that reflects your authentic self. So when you have a sense of I just know in the positive, then you are in an experience that completely supports and resonates with who you are authentically. And when you're in an environment or an energy that's incongruent with that inner sense of self, then it will feel dissonant. It's not language. That's why I don't know. It's I know or don't know, but there's no words there's no words to go along with it. It's just an energetic experience that's either harmonious or dissonant. So if you're coaching someone who's in a job situation and they say, just no, I don't belong here. It's like I always like to say it's like being in the wrong band. If you're a jazz musician and you're with the rapsters, even though everybody's making their music, it's not your music. So that's enough of a reason. We have a culture that's always looking for an intellectual argument for listening to ourselves. And we have to leave that behind. I just know is enough. We don't have to substantiate it with more information or more backup reasoning. That's when you really liberate. Then we have the gut. The gut knowing is what I call your red light. And that is your field, your protection. It keeps you on track. When you start to veer off, it'll push you back. When you start to feel your boundaries cross, it'll start to alert you. So that is your protection. And that can come with some words because your gut is connected to your survival and your ego is connected to your survival. So they dialogue, that's a good for you. Don't go there. Don't trust him. Oh, I wouldn't go, So that's where you sometimes get some language. Then we have our yellow light, which is wait. It's not time. Just pause. We're such an action-oriented, do something mindset culture that we don't create a space for what I call the power of the pause. And sometimes it's like, I know this isn't a good place for me, but I also know at the same time not to leave just yet. So you're there okay, it's not your landing place, your forever landing place, but it's not time to just yet move on. So you're in an ambivalent state, but it doesn't mean it's not right for you. So we have to allow for that as well. And I like to point out, most of our intuition has no language. We give it language, but what we're actually experiencing is a direct vibrational interaction with life. Your eyes don't have language. Your ears don't have language, and neither do your inner senses, but they give you information.
And we're getting most of that information via feeling in most instances. Is that correct?
It's correct, but I want to talk about not confusing feeling emotion with sensation. Because if you rub your hands together and pull them apart, you can feel, if you're present in your body and breathing, you can feel that subtle energy. Intuition is experiencing, sensing this energy, which is communicating. And sometimes people say, well, how do I know the difference between my emotion and my intuition? And what I say, well, you're asking what's the difference between emotion and sensing. So feeling is a word that kind of reaches to both experiences. So we have to separate them, and that helps you. What am I sensing? Might be a better question than what am I feeling? So that you don't slip into the emotion, because sometimes people will say, well, I really felt that was my soulmate. But that was an emotion, an idealistic projection versus, well, what, but I would come counter, well, okay, and what did you sense? What did you sense with this soulmate? And they'll come back and say, well, I sensed, they'll argue for whatever they ignored. I sensed someone was scared or needed more time, or we didn't know each other yet, or was so wounded that I had to keep giving. It's like, no, you sense that they weren't available and you didn't want to receive that information. So you went into emotion. So that I found, and over the years, I used to use feeling as the word, but I'm always trying to get better. That's why I keep writing more books, because I learn more. And now I'm starting to say, it's a difference between feeling emotionally and feeling an energetic experience on your being.
Would you say almost that the emotion pops up nice and ripe and ready to pick, and then just wait for a minute and dial into what you're sensing? Because I feel like,
Right.
you
I
know,
do think emotion is a good messenger, and it's an important one. But I love what you're saying, because you're suggesting what I have mentioned. Give it a minute. Here's something I know about intuition. If it's intuition, it will last. If it's emotion, it'll be like a wave that comes and goes. Really like you this morning, but I'm not so hot on you this afternoon. Whereas an intuition is, you had a bad morning, you're having a better afternoon, but I'm with you all the way. You can, there's a steadiness and a consistency and a genuine intuitive and communication. Whereas emotion definitely waxes and wanes. The other thing that's interesting about intuition is it's quiet. It doesn't have a lot of noise. It doesn't have a lot of words, and it doesn't have a lot of um, vacillation. It's consistent.
you can say that on some level. At the risk of being cheeky, I have found though, it is pretty loud when you don't listen to it.
Well, red light, well, point taken, red light intuition is the inner guidance to keep you safe. And so if you ignore it, it will amplify. And the way it amplifies is you will get more and more physically uncomfortable. And so we say loud, but again, if we're going to really be clear about energy, it becomes more intense. It becomes stronger, more intense. So we communicate that as loud because it's speaking to us, it's communicating. And this is why I think it's very important to practice on a daily basis getting back into your body, because your body is your receiver. And if you're in your head, you're going to miss it, because our heads don't receive much. Like biologically, they don't receive much. Our brain, you can operate on your brain without even anesthesia, has no feeling. I didn't know that. The neurologist I was working with pointed that out to me. And we have a very heady culture. It pulls us away from our organic experience. But if you can spend even a few minutes, even I have a breath that helps. If you just breathe in twice, pull your belly to your spine and exhale like you're blowing out candles. And with that, you intend to empty the garbage, empty all the energetic garbage. And then the third breath, you breathe in, and then you open your jaw and slide into your heart with a sigh. Ah, it instantly quiets the head. And now you're present, and you can then begin to pay attention and receive intuition. So I call that 2 breaths and a slide.
Hey guys, just a quick sec. Everything you see here at The Inspired Evolution is powered and empowered by your subscription to the podcast. If you haven't already done so, please, I invite you deeply, dearly, to take a moment to hit subscribe to the channel. It enables this entire podcast from being what it is. That's right, it's your subscription. Thank you so much in advance. It's interesting, you're talking about communication here, and I've noticed that for the longest while you've been focused on intuition as a large body of your work, but recently following along on your YouTube channel, which I'm falling more and more in love with, if that was possible. I'm noticing you're talking more and more about spirit these days, and I'd love to get you, in your own words, to help us understand the connection between intuition and spirit. How would you dialogue the connection between those two things?
Well, I think your spirit is your inner teacher. I believe that your intuition at the highest level, your heart-centered intuition, the intuition that comes from your higher channels, because we have many inner senses, is your spirit, your authentic self. It's the self that when we were talking earlier before we started about children, and when you watch an infant take its first breath and come alive, it is miraculous, but that is the spirit that starts to animate the human experience. That life force is your divine force. It's constantly trying to guide you, navigating the third dimension. So there was a time when the world couldn't hear the word spirit, but it was always spirit to me. Now the world is more available to hearing the word spirit because we've become exhausted with our mental overactivity. We are yearning for something that'll give us a break from our own thinking. So they're the same to me, but there are degrees. The spirit in you that wants you to be here, to create, to navigate, to connect, to love, to manifest, is the intuitive guide in you. And it expresses how to protect you, the red light, how to connect you, the green light, how to help you hold space, the yellow light, the pause, and be present. So now that the world is coming back to spirit, I can say it and people can hear it. Whereas since I've been teaching for 40 years, people couldn't hear it. So I went to, well, I'll tell you what you can hear. And then we've all, then the world has shifted. So that's a good question. They're one and the same.
Little bit of sugar with the medicine.
Right.
One of the interesting things as well, in a similar vein, is for the longest while, I guess I can lean into it like well, I guess it's just case in point to what you're saying. I can lean into the conversation around intuition, like my rubber gloves come on and I'm like ready to do the work. And I love what you've just distilled, that, spirit and intuition, one and the same, because one of my questions today was going to be the conversation around spirit guides, because some people hear their spirit guides saying things to them. And I'm like, that sounds a lot like you've just put logos to your intuition in some ways. And maybe what I'm hearing in this conversation, that actually it is one and the same. Different people just access their intuition using different things. Your thoughts?
It's just, there is a very benevolent, multidimensional universe that we live in. And there are forces of consciousness that are in service to our evolution. Our creator, there are frequencies in the angelic realm, there are frequencies in the nature realm, there are frequencies, even as we know our spirit leaves our body, the spirit lives on. So even our own connected loved ones, teachers, guides, and we exist on multiple levels. So, spirit guides are those benevolent forces that serve your evolution because your evolution, our evolution, is connected to the greater good. Each one of us matters, so we're all in this together. I do say your guides are there to help you, like coaches, teachers, and mentors, but it's your game. It's your game. If you think about if you're playing basketball and you have a good coach, he's not going to tell you to sit down and take over the ball. So we have to remember, because we also have been conditioned culturally to give our power away to authority figures. And sometimes when people come into the concept that there are these guides that can help us, there are these forces of support, we're all too willing to just give up our authority. Just, my guides will tell me. No, they won't. They'll influence you back to self. And your most important spirit guide is actually the spirit, your divine self in here, and all the other forces are moving you back to that. If you're aligned with that divine, authentic self in your body, in your conscious third dimension experience, you're going to have quite a miraculous experience in life. You are really going to be quite delighted of the light within you.
That's amazing. I want to ask the question for myself and for some people tuning in, how do we connect then to our divine inner support guides and system? Yeah, how do we
Well,
build that connection?
it's a good question. I think the first step is to recognize we have one, that the universe is actually multidimensional, and that there are as many forces in the subtle realms as there are in the physical realm. And that those forces vibrationally seek alignment with your highest intentions. It's like if you put a pendulum swinging here and you bring another one here, before long they're both swinging and they're both swinging higher. So if you set your intentions and you're aligned with your heart, these forces will come in naturally to lift you up, because the universe is very harmonious. Why we get into trouble in our lives, we get into what we might call the dark night of the soul. I'm lost. And you're like, how did that happen? Is because we basically stop caring about our own experience, and we don't recognize or don't choose to recognize the power of our own choices. So we go into an unconscious state that says, this is happening to me. It's like, I'm sure it feels like that, but you chose to let it feel like that. You chose that. So yeah, I hear you. Life is beating you up. You chose that. And so you're feeling disconnected and unsupported. So case in point, I talked to a gentleman yesterday, a client, and he said, for many years of my younger life, I was very passive. I had a brother who was a bit of a bully. My mom was kind of emotional and a bit histrionic. And so I just kind of folded and went with whatever just to stay safe. I went into high school that way. Pretty soon I'm just being pulled in every direction, always knowing that this is the easy way for me. This is just the easy way, never wanting to find the courage or the voice to say that's not for me. So he said, eventually I got into drugs because that was the thing. Then alcohol because that was the thing. Then I really, really played the victim card. This happened to me. It's not my fault. He said, but the whole time at the back of my mind, I knew I was kidding myself. And I was convincing everybody else of what I knew was a lie. And he said, I got very ill and I had cirrhosis of the liver as a consequence of my long years of poor choices. And I was quiet and sitting with myself. And like you said, it gets louder if you ignore it. He said, I was sitting with myself in rehab and a voice said, aren't you sick of this? Aren't you sick of this? You're sick, but aren't you sick of this too? And he said, it was the first time I really chose to listen to my higher self. And after that, I decided that I would be available to something, but I also had to be willing to find my own strength. I couldn't keep running away from things and taking the easy road. He said, the more I was willing to take responsibility for my choices and behaviors, the more my spirit guide started showing up. He said, within a year, my life went from pure hell to miraculous. But I realized I was the one that wasn't on board. Once I decided to be on board and let life be good to me, but I wouldn't check out, I started getting jobs. I got healthy. I met a woman that I thought I'd be alone who wanted to be with me. I didn't want to be with me. So now I'm married. He said it happened so fast and it just seemed to almost be like a magic movie. And I said, that's pretty much how it works. You change the channel and you get into the flow of who you are, then it all flows to you. But a lot of people say, well, there's no spirit guides, there's no benevolent universe, there's no intuition. But it's like, there is, but you've chosen to unplug. And everybody universe will respect. You chose to not participate. Okay.
Hey guys, quick question at this juncture. I'd love to understand your relationship with your intuition. How does intuition show up in your life? Leave me a comment below and I'd love to find out more from you. That's me writing back to you in the comment section below. Back to Sonia and the episode. Yeah, it's really interesting to hear you share it this way. Thank you so much for that case in point story. I struggle at this juncture because, well, I don't really struggle. I have this very clear model in my head, which I struggle with some of the languaging around it. I think Mind Valley actually teaches it pretty openly, pretty well. But it's older than Mind Valley. It's been around forever. It's the model where level 1 consciousness, we've kind of got life happening to us as we're a victim. Level 2 consciousness, life is happening by us. And I've started calling that guy the achiever. Could be a girl. Doesn't have to be a guy. I'm achieving things, like I'm so in control and I can set goals, and it's a very empowered place to be. But then there's level 3, which is, life is happening for you. Like everything that happens is happening for you. And I've started calling this guy the surrenderer,
Yes.
or the achiever, or the follower.
You know what's actually happening? It's really exciting. Level 1 is when you only connect with your ego.
It's just you.
That is who you think you are. It's third dimension. That there's only what we see and only my ego. And your ego by nature is a fearful and defended entity because it doesn't have the capacity to connect. Everything is polarized. So it's me against you. So that's the victim. Level 2 is fourth dimension. So your ego is starting to become interested in learning. It's becoming aware of spirit, but it's still, I always say, it's still driving the bus of your life, but it's an informed bus driver. Okay, my ego still gets to choose, but at least I've learned we can go more than around this block in a bad neighborhood. We get to go out and have adventures. That's the fourth dimension. It's far nicer than the third dimension, and a lot of people's spirituality stops there. It's still very egocentric. Then you go, the surrender is the right word, but what you're surrendering is an attachment to your ego identity, and you're starting to grab the identity of my spirit. And the spirit isn't polarized. The spirit isn't limited. The spirit is the divine you. There is no other. There's just us. There's just life. Let's do this. So it is a surrender. And that's the place I'm trying to take people. I'm trying to say, look, you can get into this place because it is your natural design. And we start out there. When we come into our bodies, that's where we are. And then we learn that we are influenced to be in our egos and be in fear and be separated. And then we get hierarchies. Now, the good news is that world that I inherited and that you inherited is not going to exist. It won't be there for your kids. Even at the fourth dimension, there's so much change. Even our egos are saying, I didn't like that. I didn't like being bullied, and I didn't like authorities taking my power away. So even the fourth level of consciousness is a vast improvement over submit and give up your power. That is absolutely ending. And if you don't think so, try to tell any 3-year-old plus that they don't have any power and see what they have to say. The new souls are like, not going for that. So we're seeing an evolution in self and an evolution collectively. And we are marching back to the identity we lost, which is my spirit. It's not fearful. It's not competitive. It doesn't have to fight because it's not afraid. So, and it's not limited. And I actually can create as much as I can imagine and show up to. And the universe will help me do that. But that is a big investment in responsibility. So we have to cross that bridge and say, okay, I, but not I ego, I spirit. You know who said it first? I love it, is Einstein. Einstein said the human spirit is our gift. The rational mind, ego, is the servant. But sadly, we've thrown away the gift and become enslaved to the servant. That's ending. We're taking the gift back, and we're being less and less enslaved to the servant, less and less enslaved to that victim consciousness. It's becoming, if anything, unpopular. You know, we tend to follow the crowd, but to take a victim stance in the world vibration that we're in now, you're not going to get a whole lot of support around that. That victim consciousness collective is shrinking. It is. So it's interesting to see. I was at a dinner a couple weeks ago. It's quite a different age group. And there was one guy who showed up who had just been fired and understandably quite upset, but not yet of the consciousness that he participated on any level of that experience unfolding. So it's not like you're responsible. That's blaming. But you participated in the unfolding of this experience in some way. And I would be the one to normally say that. I didn't say anything. The other people in the table who were there, young people, middle-aged people, even old people, said it. And I thought, that is so different than what was even 30 years ago. Saying, well, you know, look at this. You said yourself you didn't like this job. You were afraid to quit. It is a blessing. What do you have to do with it? Was the way that went, where 30 years ago it would have been, what a bunch of jerks. You should sue them. So it really changed. And I invite people listening to our conversation to listen to the world conversation. Now, it's changing.
Thank you so much for sharing that, because that was, I do want to, like, at some point just ask you this question. Like, you've been doing this work for so long, and just there must have been so much resistance to the conversation. Like we started at the beginning of the podcast, you said, you know, even you having to dial in the word from spirit into intuition to make it more palatable, a little bit of sugar to help medicine go down. But then watching just how we're evolving, I hear people bandy around the term like the consciousness is expanding, but what, like, from, I don't want to say the horse's mouth, that's really rude.
No, but I've been out here in the field for a long time.
Yeah, I know.
I have been watching. So what I see is this. I see that what I see and welcome, and what was very exciting, is ever since COVID, our world has become unpredictable. And predictability is what encouraged lethargic, lazy, lack of awareness, checking out. But our world right now is really unpredictable. We don't know if we're physically safe. We don't know if we're geographically safe, if we're environmentally safe. We are all hands on deck right now. And everyone feels so scared, but I feel excited because we're all now finally paying attention. We're coming back online. We're coming back into realizing nobody else is going to take care of us. We have to start collectively taking care of ourselves in a more conscious way. And that is what has changed things so fast. When our lives are predictable, we don't pay attention. We don't listen to ourselves. We just go along in sort of a mindless routine. But I don't know of anybody right now who has that luxury. Nothing's predictable. Our jobs aren't predictable. Our environment, our governments, our politics, our finances, even our money. Is it crypto? Is it Ethereum? Is it, what the hell is it? So everybody has to really notice. And one of my definitions of intuition is pay attention and notice what's really going on. Notice in fact, I have a new book coming out, of course, because as I evolve, I have a new book coming out called Read Life. Like, read it, read the room, read people, read the situation, pay attention. What is actually happening right now? And you can't do that unless you bring all your senses online. Not just but you need your outer senses. People say, well, I don't listen. I don't have inner senses. It's like, well, actually, you're not using your outer senses either. You're not listening. You're not looking. You're not sensing. You're chewing your food so fast you don't even taste it. You're going so fast you didn't even know you went anywhere. You just zip by. Life is throwing us back into a more present experience. And so that's been the catalyst for a lot of consciousness change. And I've seen it. I'd say it through the 90s, everybody was still pretty coked up, to tell you the truth. That was the popular thing of the 90s. You were just coming online then, but everybody was accelerating out of their minds with drugs. And then we went into the 2000s and we sort of got grungy, and everybody was sort of kind of bored, probably more than anything. And as we marched into this new millennium, then we scared ourselves. Y2K, everybody's going to unplug, so everybody got to scare each other. And we're all going up, when the computer's clock stops, planet ends, and we've passed that little drama. So we've run out of external distractions. We've now got to go back to, well, what's going on inside? Because I did the drugs, I did the partying, I did the dancing, I did the festivals, I did this, I got the money, I lost the money. Now what? So what we're realizing is that we are missing intimacy. Intuition is connected to intimacy with yourself, with the people you care about, and with life. So you're not checked out and not participate, you're checked in and connected. And that's what I feel why everybody is uncomfortable. Me too. But I'm not discouraged. If anything, I'm encouraged. Because you can't solve a problem until you actually acknowledge there is one.
Hi there, guys. I wanted to take a quick moment just to introduce you to my one-to-one coaching. It's something that I deeply love doing. As you can tell, conscious conversation is such a massive part of my life. And having one-to-one, deep, meaningful conversations with people where I get to show up as your brother or as the coach or as your mentor has been such a gift for me personally, and a gift for lots of the people that I have supported on the journey of living a more spiritually empowered, spiritually powered, spiritually aligned life. You don't have to take my word for it. Here's some examples of people all around the world that have experienced profound transformations through this coaching experience.
Amrit is a fantastic coach.
In a few sessions, he got to a depth that I'd only experienced before working with certain medicines.
He's gone through a lot of the struggles that you're probably facing, and Amrit's been a really strong, supportive figure in my journey.
I'm more in control of myself.
I'm kinder to myself.
I actually have that vision and a purpose.
I do feel like I'm a better version of myself already.
Amazing energy.
He was easy to talk to, which made me easy to trust him.
Working with Amrit at 9 o'clock on a Saturday morning, and really I was bouncing out of bed.
Whenever I get off the calls with Amrit, best money we've ever spent.
I would not recommend him because I don't want everyone to know about him, and then I won't be able to book him. If he gets too busy, I won't get my turn.
I would say absolutely.
There's no way you can work with Amrit for a period of time without being transformed.
So if you're considering him as a coach, do not hesitate, because you won't be disappointed.
Alrighty, so hopefully that's inspiring your evolution onwards and upwards. And if you are so inspired to evolve, you can book in a one-to-one call with me directly at www.amrit.coach/life. And guys, if I can say so myself, I do think this is something quite special. Most people that I see building things online don't really work with people this deeply, this intimately, one-on-one as things start to grow, just because it is so time intensive. And yet I'm so deeply passionate about the transformation that comes from one-to-one coaching that just isn't available anywhere else. It would be my absolute honor and a pleasure to support your spiritual awakening, your spiritual path, your spiritual unfoldment. It is my life's work. I look forward to seeing you in the call. Back to today's podcast. I love the way you described reading life as well. I'm excited for this new book. Because I feel like in level 3, like intuition and spirit, it becomes a language that you start speaking in that space. There is also, though, a fear that people have of things that they don't trust, of things that they don't know. And it's kind of juxtaposed with, like you said, we were born this way and then educated out of it. And then now there's like a reclaiming back, and it's like, but there's so much fear towards it for some people.
The fear is your ego being afraid of losing control, and it has to. But you're losing control to a greater you, not to annihilation, but the ego. It's like, if I'm not controlling life, then I'm doomed. But it's actually when you stop controlling life from that, like, manage it out here, and you surrender, as you so aptly say, you act. One of the most beautiful experiences, you stop thinking, you stop strategizing, you stop planning for the shoe to drop. You're present, and instead you start responding to what is actually happening. And your nature is capable of responding well. This is the doubt that you've been given in the ego education, is you can't trust yourself. You can't trust anything. You can't trust life. You can't watch your back. Everything's where when you get to the spirit, it's like, actually, I can trust my spirit, and I can trust your spirit and the goodness of life and the spirit of the planet. If I start paying attention, then I'm not in a constant state of threat. So that fear, first, it will amplify because it's just the contraction of the ego trying to stay in charge. But eventually it's tiring. You're just like, oh, whatever. And then things like that guy I told you about who was going up in flames in the rehab with his liver completely pickled. He's like, this is too hard. I give up. And that's when things started moving. My ego is not handling my life very well. It is messing it up. So I'm going to just stop.
It's interesting as well, because I think one of the challenges I recognize through this is when we're in that, and I'm probably going to try and put a metaphor in here. I'm not sure if it's going to work, but it's like lots of people in the nutrition space tout intuitive eating. And but like at some point along your nutrition journey, it's like, if I was to intuitively eat, I'm going for the donut. It's almost like level one.
Well, that's emotional eating, though. We're going to go back to what I said before. But here's how I would interpret that.
Yeah.
Okay, if I'm going to use my intuition, and my intuition is saying, I want a donut, I would say your mind is equating a donut with the fact that you want some sweetness in life. So where can that sweetness come in a way that will actually land and feel good after the last bite? So the donut is a metaphor for what you want. Go underneath the surface. If I want a steak, well, what you really want is to get grounded. What you really want is to feel in your body and solid. So what choices can you make, both with food? Okay, eat a steak, whatever. But get grounded. Be present. Slow down. Stop. Sit down. And so I always say we stop too soon. Intuition is to get underneath and keep going underneath to what is the essence of what our impulses are asking us to pay attention to.
Yeah, I find the tools that are required to get out from level 1 consciousness to level 2, like us being able to, really take control and, that helps so much. And then it's those exact tools that we need to let go of when it comes to level 2 and level 3, which is so and that's the hard, I find that's the rubbing
Well, I'll
point.
tell you how to make it easy. I'll tell
Yeah,
you how to
please.
make it super easy and works every time. And I do this in every live workshop is I have you sing and dance and laugh because you're instantly in the highest level. You pop back to your highest vibration automatically. Singing, dancing, laughing, playing. It's a reboot. It's a reset back to this high vibration instantly. So you don't have to sit around and meditate for 45 hours that you don't have, especially when you're starving and you do want a donut. Just put on some music. Start laughing, start playing. And there you go. Your donut goes and your spirit's back home.
Do you think, and at the risk of getting sinister for a sec, do you think we're intentionally disconnected from our joy and our laughter? I look at the news, I look at things, and I can't help but point a finger or two and just go, come on, man.
Well, you know what it is, Amrit? It's addiction. Because all that drama creates cortisol, which is the most addictive substance in the body. So you're an addict and you get your hit. So we have to address it for what it is. It is addiction to drama and what happens in the body in this state. So you really need to go cold turkey. You need to call it what it is and recognize you're right. Come on. But it's not, let's go deeper again. Come on, quit being addicted to all this drama and distraction. And acknowledge that you are addicted. The hardest thing for any addict is to say, I'm an addict and I've had enough. And we've been trained to be addicted. We get it and we get it and we get it and we get it. And our bodies get this burst of cortisol. It's actually a chemical in the body. Adrenaline and cortisol keeps you trapped. So you really need to be discerning about what you're feeding your consciousness. You need to be discerning. When I mentor people, I invite them to unplug from the news. It's like, I'm not going to work against your own self-sabotage. You have to pick your channel. But if you're going to work with me, I'm going to invite you to unplug for 6 months. And they're like, oh my God. It's like, no, the world you'll get up, the lights will be on, the water will run, the food is at the store. I know that you feel like you have to watch every minute or you're going to get ambushed, but you won't. It's a scary thing, but that's how you have to go cold turkey on any addiction. So that's a good point you made.
We're talking about the body, and you were talking about reading life before, and I just want to clear up because some people tuning in will mistake that for hypervigilance, and their nervous system will tighten up further, and it's not a mental thing that you're talking about, read life, because I think some people will overly start scrutinizing. So I just kind of want to clear that up, because what are we referring to?
I think that's a very legitimate point.
Nervous system.
But here's my experience. When I talk about reading life, I'm talking about, and even the subtitle of my book is Recognize What's Really Going On, so you can respond. So if your ego's reading life, well, frankly, your ego's always reading life now. It's interpreting everything as a potential threat, and it's seeing everything as a threat. It's reading it. It's not read into life. It's not read into it from your ego. It's about recognizing the flow of energy and finding your place in it. So it's not about a hypervigilance against the assault. It's really about what's going on here bigger than me. Where do I fit into the whole? Where am I part of something bigger, and where can I contribute to something bigger? That's a concept that the ego doesn't consider very often. The first indication you're moving out of the ego is you start to at least wonder about purpose or contribution. That's a really nice concrete sign that I'm moving on up here into a higher vibration, because I start to care about more than my own selfish survival. I start to care about more than my own immediate interests and my own immediate point of view. So to read life is not to be hypervigilant, but it is to pay attention, because most people are not paying attention to a thing. They're so preoccupied. I mean, how many of you listening have been running around going, where are my glasses? Where are my glasses? And they're in your hand or on your face, because you're not present. You're numb. Where's my phone? Oh my God, it's around my neck. It's the real question, where am I? I've lost myself. Where am I? Where am I? I need to come back. So I think that we're not going to be hyper vigilant if we understand that there's no threat. There's just energy and flow. Does it resonate with me or not? And I step away instead of deny it if it doesn't resonate with me, thus eliminating the potential collisions of vibration that create unpleasant experiences.
Sonia. Thank you as always. I find these conversations always so energetically charged and open, yet somehow energetically so grounding. You always help us find our place in the whole.
What I love is your questions. They're so practical. They're so practical.
Thank you for your blessings. I am so grateful for having you here with us today, and thank you for gracing us again. And
it was my pleasure.
Appreciate you so much. Cannot thank you enough.
It was my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Inspired soul, you've made it all the way through to the end of another podcast. On screen right now to continue your journey are other conversations that I've had with Sonia. She is beyond incredible, and other conversations on intuition for you to take your journey further. Don't forget to also hit subscribe to the channel. Please do subscribe to the channel, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Go on, click it. Yeah, click it. See you there.